I remember sitting on the floor and seeing all these men dressed in black or dressed in camo or whatever, authority figures basically, standing around on that wall. And they asked me what was at risk, and it was just clear as a bell to me right off the bat, is that my entire life I had felt like a fraud with very little substance, and these men could see that clearly. That was the answer to my what's at risk. And at that point, it felt like going down in an elevator. I was totally present. The shields went down. For whatever reason, it felt like this was the place to drop the shields and pay attention to what was going on.
Fundamentally, I didn't trust the goodness of other men. I didn't trust other men, period, or myself. And all of a sudden, I found a group of men that I could fundamentally trust and become open and become vulnerable and then start to begin to trust myself.
Something told me that it's somewhere out there there's a different world where people actually see each other, embrace each other, challenge each other in a good way, love each other, bless each other. And my greatest fear most of the time until I got to the men's work is I'd never find that place. I know it existed, but my great fear is I'd never find it. And my great fear, my great sadness was I'd never find it. And so to get to the men's work, and finally into an entire community was a huge, huge thing for me.
The biggest challenge is you have a culture who either doesn't believe or doesn't want to believe that men should need support and should need to be served and helped in some way. And at the same time, there's a whole other cultural message which says, men are really basically at fault for everything and they're all and practically hopeless.
Well, I think a lot of the other stuff out of the men's movement was really following kind of that whole, mythopoetic thing. So the drumming, the dancing, the storytelling, all that. I think the place where ManKind Project kind of elevated that whole game is we can bring men together in that kind of energy. In addition, we're going to ask you to do some things. We're going to ask you to take a look at, what is the sense of integrity and the true relationship that you have with yourself that you live with.
The founders, Ron Herring, Rich Tosi, and Bill Kaut. Ron was a PhD in psychology, clinical psychologist and a college professor. Rich, Marine engineer and corporate executive. And then Bill Kaut, New Age visionary therapist. And those three things came together to create what we have today. And it's fundamentally the same thing. So there's the edge and the clarity of the Marine. There's the intuitive, brilliant design of Ron Herring. Just these processes that are like, whoa, and how they all fit together. And then there's just this grand kind of vision and the almost crazy big thinking of Bill Kaut.
I think the initiation piece, the additional layer it's going to put in there, is about asking you to move through the deepest levels of your own socialization that keeps you isolated and apart from me as a man. See, I don't have that expectation from you in a training. You don't have to give that up. And an initiation is a place where I'm going to at least ask you to consider giving that up for a while and see, are you willing to experience me without all of those barriers and all of the distance, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, the cognitive distance all of your socialization creates for you?
The value of MKP to me is still the community, and it's still the tools that we learn, that we practice and that we refine. And that there's a space to practice them, there's a space to sort of live out the emotional life that we can't live out elsewhere, and create a different culture around what it is to be a man.
We're going to help men find their purpose so they can serve something. They can serve and contribute something beyond themselves. And we're going to give them the tools to help them get out of their own way and deal with the issues that block them from getting that.
What's your life going to be about here? It's got to be about something. You're just going to work for 30 years and get your, go watch, from working in the coal mine for 30 years. Was that what you want? So what's the mark? Where are you going to make a difference here? What are you going to, even if the difference is in your family or just your neighborhood or your particular part of town or the entire world, where are you going to make a difference here?